Imagine this. You're a child in your own home, but instead of feeling safe, you're constantly on trial. Every word you speak is twisted, every action judged. You turn to your siblings or relatives for comfort, only to find they're repeating your parents' accusations back at you. It feels like the walls are closing in, and suddenly, you're not fighting just one person. You're fighting an army. This is the reality of growing up with a narcissistic parent who knows how to recruit flying monkeys. These aren't literal winged creatures, of course. They're siblings, cousins, even grandparents who get pulled into the parent's web, turned into enforcers of control. Some join willingly, seduced by favoritism. Others don't even realize they've become pawns. But the result is the same. The target child is isolated, discredited, and left questioning their own reality. In this episode, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most insidious tactics narcissistic parents use, turning family into weapons. We'll explore how they do it, why it works, and most importantly, how you can protect yourself when the people you should trust most become part of the abuse. The term flying monkey comes from The Wizard of Oz, where the Wicked Witch commands her winged servants to do her bidding. In the world of dark psychology and narcissistic abuse, the phrase has taken on a chillingly accurate new meaning. People who are recruited to carry out the narcissist's dirty work. They may spread rumors, enforce control, or shame the victim into submission, all while believing they're doing the right thing. When the narcissist is a parent, this tactic cuts especially deep. Parents have access to the people you're closest to, your brothers, sisters, cousins, even grandparents. Instead of being allies, these relatives can be turned against you. It's not just one toxic parent you're dealing with. It feels like the entire family system has been weaponized. In today's episode, we'll be unpacking exactly how and why narcissistic parents do this. We'll look at the psychological tricks that make siblings and relatives vulnerable to manipulation, the devastating impact on the child who becomes the scapegoat, and the practical steps you can take to protect yourself. If you've ever felt ganged up on by your own family, this episode is going to shed light on what's really happening. When survivors of narcissistic abuse use the term flying monkey, they're not being dramatic. They're describing a very real psychological phenomenon. The phrase, borrowed from The Wizard of Oz, captures the image of a powerful figure who doesn't just attack you directly, but sends out loyal followers to do the dirty work. In the context of family systems, those followers are often siblings, cousins, or even trusted relatives. So what does this mean in practice? A flying monkey is anyone who acts on behalf of the narcissistic parent to control, monitor, or punish the target child. They might repeat gossip that paints you as the problem. They might pressure you to be more forgiving or respect your parents, even when you're being mistreated. Sometimes they'll directly confront or bully you on the parent's behalf. The goal is the same: to keep the narcissist's version of reality intact and to isolate the scapegoat. There are generally two types of flying monkeys. The witting ones know exactly what they're doing. They may side with the narcissistic parent because they enjoy the benefits, status, praise, or special treatment. Then there are the unwitting flying monkeys who don't recognize they're being manipulated. They genuinely believe they're helping keep the peace, but in reality, they're reinforcing the narcissist's control. This distinction is important because it explains why confronting them often backfires. Whether intentional or not, flying monkeys become extensions of the narcissistic parent's power. They carry out emotional warfare by proxy, which can make the target feel surrounded, outnumbered, and silenced. Understanding what flying monkeys are is the first step. Next, we need to look at why narcissistic parents recruit them in the first place, and how family roles make this tactic so effective. Narcissistic parents thrive on control. For them, it's not enough to dominate one child directly. They want to control the entire narrative of the family. Recruiting siblings and relatives serves a very specific purpose. It multiplies their power while weakening their target. One of the most common tactics is splitting, dividing siblings into rigid roles like the golden child and the scapegoat. The golden child is showered with praise and privileges, while the scapegoat is blamed, criticized, or even punished for things beyond their control. This contrast doesn't happen by accident. It's engineered. By rewarding one child and demeaning the other, the parent ensures that loyalty flows upwards toward them, not sideways toward each other. Beyond splitting, narcissistic parents use triangulation, a psychological maneuver where they pit family members against each other to avoid accountability. Instead of addressing conflict directly, they'll confide in a sibling or grandparent, exaggerating the target child's behavior. Suddenly, the parent's version of events becomes the family truth, and others feel compelled to enforce it. The result is a form of manufactured loyalty. Relatives may feel obligated to take sides, often believing they're protecting the family or supporting the parent's authority. In reality, they're reinforcing the narcissist's control structure. This keeps the scapegoated child isolated, surrounded by people who echo the parent's narrative. For the narcissistic parent, the benefits are enormous. They gain validation, avoid accountability, and secure a network of enforcers who will pressure the target into submission. For the scapegoat, the cost is devastating. Betrayal from the very people who should have been allies. Next, we'll dive deeper into the specific psychological manipulation tactics narcissistic parents use to turn family members into their flying monkeys. Narcissistic parents rarely recruit flying monkeys through direct commands. Instead, they rely on subtle, but devastating, forms of psychological manipulation. These tactics are designed to distort reality, divide family members, and create loyalty where none should exist. Let's break down the most common methods. 1. Gaslighting siblings. Gaslighting is one of the narcissist's most effective tools. They'll twist facts, retell events, or even outright deny reality to make siblings doubt what actually happened. For example, if the scapegoated child reports abuse, the parent might tell the siblings, "You know how dramatic they are. Don't believe everything they say." Over time, siblings may begin to second-guess the scapegoat's words, leaving the target isolated and discredited. Second, smear campaigns. Narcissists love to get ahead of the story. They'll spread damaging narratives about the scapegoat, calling them ungrateful, selfish, unstable, or rebellious, long before the child has a chance to speak for themselves. By poisoning the well, the narcissist ensures that when conflicts arise, relatives are already primed to side with the parent. 3. Playing favorites. Few tactics are as divisive as favoritism. By elevating one sibling, the golden child, and scapegoating another, narcissistic parents create rivalry and resentment. The golden child often becomes a willing flying monkey, defending the parent to protect their privileged position. This division makes solidarity among siblings almost impossible. 4. Guilt and obligation. Relatives are often manipulated through guilt. Narcissistic parents lean on ideas like family loyalty, respect your elders, or don't air dirty laundry. These cultural and moral appeals make it difficult for siblings and extended family to question the parent's narrative. Anyone who resists, risks being labeled disloyal or disrespectful. 5. Emotional triangulation. Instead of addressing conflict directly, narcissistic parents vent to one family member about another. "Your sister is so selfish, I don't know what to do anymore," they might confide. The sibling then feels responsible for confronting or correcting the scapegoat, unknowingly acting as the parent's enforcer. Through these manipulations, narcissistic parents construct a network of allies who keep their control intact. For the scapegoated child, it means every interaction, whether with siblings, cousins, or even grandparents, can become a reenactment of the parent's abuse. Next, we'll explore how siblings specifically are pulled into these roles and why some resist, while others fully embrace the role of flying monkey. When a narcissistic parent recruits siblings into their web of control, the effects can be particularly painful. Siblings are supposed to be our allies, the people who share our childhood experiences. But under the influence of a manipulative parent, they can become some of the most effective flying monkeys. One reason this dynamic works so well is the assignment of roles. In many narcissistic families, children are cast into fixed positions: the golden child, the scapegoat, and sometimes the lost child. The golden child is showered with praise and privilege, often feeling special and protected. But that privilege comes at a cost. They're subtly trained to defend the parent and dismiss the scapegoat's experiences. The scapegoat, meanwhile, is the target of blame, criticism, and punishment. This divide ensures that siblings don't unite against the parent, but remain locked in competition for approval. Siblings may also act as flying monkeys because of fear and survival instincts. Even if they see the abuse, aligning with the parent can feel safer than opposing them. Supporting the scapegoat might mean losing their good standing, or even becoming a target themselves. Compliance, then, becomes a form of self-preservation. Not all siblings comply willingly, however. Some are passive followers, not consciously aware of the role they're playing. They might parrot the parent's words, "You're too sensitive," or "Why can't you just get along with mom?" without realizing they're reinforcing the abuse. Others actively enjoy the power that comes with siding with the parent, relishing their elevated status within the family hierarchy. For the scapegoated child, having siblings as flying monkeys creates a sense of betrayal layered on top of abuse. It erodes trust, leaving them feeling not just targeted by a parent, but abandoned by their peers. This rupture in sibling bonds can last well into adulthood, with estrangement often becoming the only path to safety. Next, we'll examine how extended family members, grandparents, aunts, uncles, can also be pulled into this toxic system, further deepening the isolation of the scapegoat. When narcissistic parents enlist extended family members, grandparents, aunts, uncles, even cousins, the abuse spreads beyond the immediate household. What makes this especially painful is that extended relatives are often seen as a potential source of refuge. Instead of offering protection, they may unknowingly or deliberately reinforce the narcissist's control. One way this happens is through authority and tradition. Grandparents, for example, may take the parent's side because they believe in respecting your elders or maintaining family loyalty. Cultural expectations like family comes first or never speak against your parents become tools the narcissist exploits. By framing the scapegoat's resistance as disobedience or shameful behavior, they rally older relatives to pressure the child back into compliance. Aunts and uncles can also become flying monkeys when they accept the parent's distorted version of events without question. If the narcissistic parent complains that a child is rebellious or difficult, relatives may step in with unsolicited lectures or scolding. Often they believe they're helping restore order, when in reality they're punishing the scapegoat for daring to challenge the abuse. Extended family can even act as informants. They may report back on the scapegoat's activities, relationships, or even social media posts, feeding the parent more material to control and criticize. This can leave the scapegoated child feeling like there is no safe corner in the family system. The collective effect is devastating. Instead of having multiple protective figures, the scapegoat faces a wall of united disapproval. What should have been a network of support becomes an echo chamber of the narcissist's narrative. Next, we'll look closely at the impact on the targeted child, the emotional toll of being ganged up on by siblings and extended relatives alike. For the child cast as the scapegoat, the experience of being surrounded by flying monkeys is more than just conflict. It's a profound betrayal. The people they expect to find comfort in, siblings, cousins, grandparents, become extensions of the narcissistic parent's control. This dynamic leaves lasting psychological scars. The most immediate impact is isolation. When every attempt to defend themselves is met with disbelief or ridicule, the scapegoated child begins to feel like no one sees or hears them. Even in a crowded family gathering, they can feel utterly alone. This isolation erodes the sense of belonging that's critical for healthy development. Another effect is chronic self-doubt. When siblings and relatives repeat the parent's accusations, "You're overreacting," "You're too sensitive," "Why can't you be more like your brother or sister?" the child starts to internalize those judgments. Over time, they may struggle to trust their own perceptions, making them vulnerable to future manipulation in friendships, workplaces, and romantic relationships. Many scapegoated children also develop hypervigilance. Living in a family system where attacks can come from any direction teaches them to be constantly on guard, scanning for signs of danger or betrayal. This heightened alertness, while adaptive in childhood, often carries into adulthood as anxiety, insomnia, or difficulty relaxing around others. The long-term consequences can be severe. Survivors often struggle with complex PTSD, marked by flashbacks, emotional dysregulation, and persistent shame. Trust issues are common. If siblings and relatives joined in the abuse, the scapegoated child may find it nearly impossible to rely on others later in life. Some eventually choose estrangement, cutting ties with family members entirely as the only path to healing. Perhaps the deepest wound is the sense of betrayal trauma. Being targeted by a parent is painful enough, but having siblings or extended family reinforce that abuse teaches the child a dangerous lesson: that love is conditional and loyalty can be weaponized. Rebuilding trust in themselves and others becomes a lifelong journey. Understanding this impact is essential. It shows why flying monkeys aren't just annoying side characters in the story of abuse. They are central to how narcissistic parents maintain control and why recovery requires breaking free from the entire toxic system. One of the hardest parts of navigating narcissistic family systems is spotting when siblings or relatives have taken on the role of flying monkey. It isn't always obvious. Sometimes it looks like concern, other times like open hostility. But there are patterns to watch for. A common red flag is when relatives parrot the narcissistic parent's language. If you hear phrases like, "You're too sensitive," "You should just forgive," or "Don't make mum upset," that's often a sign they've internalized the parent's narrative. Their words echo the script the narcissist has been feeding them. Another indicator is selective loyalty. Flying monkeys often minimize or excuse the parent's hurtful behavior while magnifying every perceived flaw in the scapegoat. For example, if you set a boundary, they may frame it as selfish or disrespectful, while ignoring the parent's abuse entirely. Some relatives become information gatherers. They might ask seemingly innocent questions about your life, then report everything back to the parent. If private details you shared suddenly resurface in family conflicts, it's a clear sign of triangulation at work. Finally, watch for emotional pressure disguised as family duty. Guilt trips about keeping the family together or shaming you for distancing yourself. This pressure isn't about unity. It's about protecting the narcissist's control. Recognizing these patterns allows you to see the dynamic clearly for what it is. Not a personal failure, but a system designed to silence and isolate you. When siblings or relatives are acting as flying monkeys, the most important thing to remember is this: you cannot control their behavior, but you can control your response. Protecting yourself doesn't mean winning them over. It means preserving your sanity, boundaries, and emotional safety. The first step is setting clear boundaries. Decide what you will and will not tolerate. This might mean refusing to engage in conversations where your parent's behavior is defended, or cutting off gossip that paints you as the problem. Boundaries should be simple, firm, and consistent. You don't need to justify them. Your no is enough. Next is practicing the grey rock method. Flying monkeys thrive on emotional reactions because those reactions feed the narcissist's narrative. By staying neutral, calm, and unreactive, you make yourself a less effective target. Keep responses brief, factual, and free of emotional fuel. For some, limiting contact or going low contact is necessary. If relatives continually side with the narcissistic parent, stepping back can give you space to heal. This might feel like betrayal at first, but remember, their loyalty is to the narcissist, not to truth or fairness. Distance protects your mental health. Equally important is building validation outside the family system. Therapy, support groups, or trusted friends can provide the reality check you'll never get from flying monkeys. Having people who believe you and support your boundaries is a lifeline when family refuses to. Finally, practice emotional detachment. Accept that flying monkeys are operating under manipulation, fear, or self-interest. Their behavior reflects the parent's control, not your worth. Protecting yourself doesn't always look dramatic. Often it's the quiet, steady choice to put your well-being above the dysfunctional family script. Growing up with a narcissistic parent is already difficult, but when siblings and relatives are pulled into the role of flying monkeys, the pain multiplies. What should have been a support system becomes a network of enforcers, echoing the parent's narrative and silencing your truth. If you've lived this, know this much: you are not crazy, you are not alone, and your experience is valid. We've explored how narcissistic parents recruit family members, the tactics they use to maintain control, and the devastating impact this has on the child who becomes the scapegoat. Most importantly, we've talked about how to recognize when it's happening and the steps you can take to protect yourself. Healing starts with awareness, and every boundary you set is an act of reclaiming your power. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Have you experienced siblings or relatives acting as flying monkeys? What strategies have helped you protect yourself? Sharing your perspective not only validates your journey, but may help someone else who's still searching for answers. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone who might need it. And remember, you have the right to your truth, even if your family refuses to see it. Thank you for being here and for standing in your truth.